I'm Misha Hadaway, CEO and owner of Gentle Mama Counseling, and you're tuned into Ladies Power Lunch.
Hi, I'm Nadine Keller, CEO of Precision Sales Coaching and Training, and you are tuned into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Debbie Sodergren, the CEO of Up Vibrations, and you are plugged into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Christy Sullivan, human design expert, author, and speaker, and you are tuned in to the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Keisha Zullo, president of Events of Joy, and you're tuned into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Mary Colangelo. I'm an international fashion therapist, and you are tuned in to the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm LaQuisha Clemens, the CEO of Freedom Life Therapy and Wellness. You are tuned in to the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Kiana Coachman Strickland, also known as DJ Q Boogie. I'm the founder of Female DJ Association, and you are tuned into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Grow Your Business Smarter, Live Your Optimal Life show. For those of you who have never tuned in before, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are coming back, yeah. So here's the premise of this show. In addition to hosting this show, I also host a women's group called Ladies Power Lunch, and we are really focused on supporting each other as women in business so we can all grow our businesses. But while we're growing our businesses and we're busy doing all the things that are required for growing our businesses, we want to make sure that we're not leaving ourselves behind. So as we're growing our business, not by working harder, pushing, pulling, stressing, and straining, but by actually collaborating, we're also paying attention to the things that are important to us for our personal well-being so that we can also keep living our optimal life. Because you don't want to wait until someday to actually live your optimal life. You really want to be living your best life every single day, as best as you can. So that's what we're all about. That's what we're here talking about every single day. And we have a group of amazing women, about 1,000 deep, and every show we pull on the resources of our members to come share their gifts and talents with us, to share with us what they know to be true. And we hope that people will be able to take something really, really tangible from the show, go apply that to their lives, to their businesses, and make a difference so that they can keep doing the thing that they do in the world that is going to make the world a better place. So are you on board? Are you ready? Well, first and foremost, before we do anything else, come join us over in our very, very robust and very, very engaged Facebook community. Just go to growsmarter.com/login, and there you'll see a whole lot of things that you can participate with us on, including being a member of our community. And who knows, maybe you'll be one of the future guests on our show. I look forward to meeting you and having great conversation with you. So on with the show. Today, I'd like to invite our very, very dear friend to the show, Nadine Mullings. She is a marketer by profession. That's what she went to school for. That's what she trained for. That's what she did in corporate. And then now she's here sharing her gifts and talents with her marketing agency with the world. So welcome, Nadine. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I always love coming on and having a conversation with you because you are so much joy. And so I love having conversations with you, Davia. So I'm excited for our conversation today.
I'm excited to talk to you too, because just a few weeks ago, and for those of you who may have missed it, we had a panel discussion. And what we were talking about was how to take your content and go from content to actually paying customers just by reusing the things that you've already found that worked for you. And we had a great panel. We had Nadine on our panel, and she shared some really interesting points. And if you missed that episode, I want to ask you, wherever you're catching this, if you're watching us on Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, if you're catching us on YouTube, or if you're watching us on our podcast, just go 3 episodes up the list and you will see the episode where we had that panel discussion. And I want to invite you to go and watch it because it was really tons of fun, but there was lots of people were just throwing out amazing ideas. And I feel like there's going to be something there for you to use in your business and actually see some growth there. So Nadine, you shared with us on the panel discussion some really great tips for using content that we've already created to actually turn our businesses around and grow our impact and our income. Can you tell me, Nadine, do you find when you're working with clients that people tend to just want to keep creating new content and that they actually struggle with that? Is that a problem? Is that an issue?
Yeah, it absolutely is an issue. And it's also, I feel, a mindset thing. Like we feel like we need to be on this content wheel of always churning out new content. And then we forget all the amazing content we've already created that a lot of people were not exposed to at the time when we originally wrote that content. So I always encourage my clients, look and see what you already have existing and create a repurposing plan. So, yes, it's awesome and great to create new content and needed and necessary to stay fresh and relevant, but also look back and see what is still relevant today that I've said before. Sometimes we have a mission or a theme or a topic that stays on our heart and it's still relevant 5 years later, right? And we've written about it or talked about it before. So I always say, have a repurposing plan. I mean, I'll give you an example of a repurposing plan for me that I used this year was the entire first quarter of 2025. I repurposed all of my blog posts, well, not all of them, but a majority of my blog posts from 2024 that I felt were still relevant, still good content, still important today. And I repurposed it for the entire quarter. So I was putting those same posts and repurposing it. I put the original post date. And if there was any like little updates that I needed to put on the blog post, I would put those updates. But it was still valuable content. And I had people commenting on it that didn't see it the first time. So I always recommend what can be your repurposing plan, your repurposing strategy, because if your content is still valuable, it's still relevant, you need to be posting it again. You need to be saying it again. So that's just an example for myself personally that I use to repurpose my blog posts. I repurposed several of my blog posts from 2024 and posted it again in first quarter 2025.
As we are, we're in second quarter of our year here. I know we try not to timestamp these, but we're in second quarter. And for us in our business, second quarter is a reevaluation quarter for us. It's an opportunity for us to look at our year plan, see what we did in first quarter, see what worked well, see kind of tweak things and move forward based on that. How are you finding as a marketer that you're best able to support turning content into actually paying customers when it comes to your customers in this second quarter environment?
Absolutely. I think that people have a desire to go deeper. And a lot of times when we have content, it may be the surface, right? We can only share so much in one blog post. We can actually only share so much in a book. Sometimes we have an idea, a thought, and we create a whole book around it. But after we publish the book, there's so many other things we think, oh, we could have added this in the book, or I could have said this in the book. So you still have room to make that conversation grow around that topic or that theme. So what I would say in order to really convert your content into clients is what ways or opportunity can you go deeper on that topic where someone would like to pay for that type of information? So it's not just your surface blog post or your surface book, but going even deeper with that content. An example of that would be a course. So if, for example, you have an existing book that has an amazing content out there, but you really want to handhold people through the content, potentially creating an entire course out of that book can allow people to go deeper and then converts that person not from just a simple reader of your book, but now they're a client that has enrolled into your course. So really thinking, in what ways can people experience this content at a deeper level, and then go ahead and creating content that repurposing your content to go deeper for those individuals. I'd say is the number one way that you can convert existing content into clients is what ways can you go deeper with that person?
I absolutely love that. For a lot of folks who tune in to us often, you probably see this book, Live Your Optimal Life, in our background all the time. And Live Your Optimal Life is like the theme of our entire business. Like we're here to do business, we're here to share the work that is flowing through us with our clients. But part of that also means that we need to be taking care of ourselves and doing the very best that we can for ourselves. And so we've actually taken the whole theme of Live Your Optimal Life and we've done a book with it. We've done workbooks with it. We've done summits with it. And we host retreats based on this principle. And now we have this whole entire show that's all about what are all the ways that we can hurry up and do our business so we can get to the business of living our lives, basically. So I am a big fan of finding what's working and actually repurposing. Can you give us some do's and don'ts though? Because I know there, as we're coming up with this brilliant idea of, yay, let's repurpose our content, I'm sure there's some things that we might want to do more of, and then there's some things that we might want to, maybe that's not exactly the direction we want to go. What are some of the do's and don'ts as a marketer, Nadine, that you would suggest for us?
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind, but first, before I share do's and don'ts and tips on that, I want to talk about live your optimal life because I think, Divya, you embody repurposing and doing it well, right? I can attest to and testify to the Live Your Optimal Life cruise retreats on in 2024. And it really embodied the principles of the book. What are the best ways for you to live your optimal life? And not only did it embody the principles of the book, but it also allowed us to go deeper. So I think you are an
Mhm.
amazing example of what I just shared about how can you allow people to go deeper with the theme or topic that you've been talking about, whether in the blog, whether in a blog, or whether in a whether in a book. You can allow
I
people to
feel
go
like
deeper
we're Dr. Seuss right now in a blog.
in a book. Yes, you could go deeper. And you just gave a great example, and I've experienced it for myself with the Live Your Optimal Life retreat. So I just couldn't pass over that without mentioning that I feel that you really embody these principles in the way that you show up in the marketplace. And I have learned and I've grown so much from attending the Live Your Optimal Life retreats. So I definitely encourage any listeners, whenever the next one is at the time of this recording, make sure you sign up for it because it's definitely a way to go deeper if you really want to live your optimal life. So definitely pay attention to that, because again, Davia really embodies these principles. And I think you wanted to talk about do's and don'ts, so I'm going to address that before I start shifting off to another topic. But the do's and don'ts are this: you have to realize what platform you're repurposing for. And I'll give you an example. If you have a lot of amazing blog content, I know people that have been blogging for years and they're really great writers and they have amazing blog content and it would make an amazing book. So they want to repurpose their blog posts into a book. You can't just pick up all your blog posts and then dump it into a book. You have to edit it. You have to make sure it flows right. You have to make sure it's more compatible to a book format. So the don't is don't just regurgitate the information in the same format from the original platform and put it on a different platform and expect it to work well. You have to kind of massage the content to make it work for the next platform. And in the example for what I just shared, you have to massage that blog content into a book content and make it follow an outline and chapters and read like a book. And even sometimes the way that you write for a blog is different than the way you write for a book. So editing the writing. And I'm going to highlight Davia again because she did this thing. She did the exact same thing and took blog content. And correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but I believe you took blog content and put it in the form of a book. I know you did with a podcast for sure. So you really had to take it from the platform that it was on and massage it for the new platform, whether that be a book, whether that be for a podcast. So the don't is don't just regurgitate the information and put it on a different platform, really massage it. The do is make sure it's appropriate for the platform that you're repurposing the material on. So hopefully that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. And here's the thing with me, I really do subscribe to this idea of it takes a village to do all the things that we need to do. And that the thing that you might be struggling with, there's somebody out there who could do it in a snap of a finger. And so
Yep.
when it came to doing the editing and making certain decisions about like the flow and how things should be put together, we worked together with Greenheart Living Press and Envision Greatness Press to, because they're the experts, they're the publishers, they know that sort of stuff. And they put me in touch with their amazing editors and we worked together to get it done. So at the end of the day, it didn't really take a whole lot of effort on my part
Mm-hmm.
because we had amazing partners. So my do would be if there's somebody who who has that expertise when it comes
So true.
to the platform that you're attempting to repurpose your content to, don't
Yep.
be afraid to reach out
Yep.
because it might be way easier and actually cost you less in terms of time and money just to have an expert put eyes on it.
Absolutely. I think that's a great tip. Definitely important to do that. Partner up with those key people that can make it easy to repurpose your content to the next platform for sure.
Yeah, I love that. So, as we're out here and we're doing the most. One of the things that I think we can probably do a little bit better is probably looking back at the content that we've had and see what does well. what read well with people? What had a high rate of comments? What got a lot of likes? Which topics did we do a Facebook Live that got like a lot of engagement? Did we put up a reel on Instagram that people just really, really felt really good about? Was there a LinkedIn post that was really good? And then looking at those and saying, okay, I've done all of this stuff. We're still doing the same business. What are the main points in these posts that we shared that really resonated with folks? And then see how we can take those main points and put them back out there. Because what I'm coming to understand, and I realize this because I am not on social media, perhaps I'm not doom scrolling. I'm just never gonna have that kind of time. So what I do see on social media is probably limited. So I'm probably not seeing every single one of your posts, Nadine. But like if you post something today about repurposing marketing materials, I probably wouldn't have seen it
Yep.
because I have not been on social media today. So
Yep.
there's an opportunity to keep using these posts over and over because I don't feel as though people are paying as close attention as we think they are. And so if we
Yep.
put the posts out there, like what are you finding when it comes to your clients?
Yeah, so I'll say two things. First, I'll talk about what you shared about the clients actually paying attention, or individuals paying attention to what's resonating in the marketplace. Like, what are people liking or commenting, and using that as a gauge or a guide to think about repurposing that specific content. Because as you shared that, I thought about a particular person that I had on my podcast before, and she talked about how she did a YouTube video, and the YouTube video was all about sponsorship, how you can find sponsors for your
Mm.
business, for your events, for different things. She was just sharing about sponsorship in general on YouTube. And she realized that that particular YouTube video went viral. People were liking, they were commenting.
Mhm.
That topic resonated with them so much that she turned that topic into a summit. And every single year, she has an in-person summit in Atlanta all about sponsorships. And she has people come in and, she teaches on how to get sponsors. So as you were sharing, paying attention to what's resonating with people, what people are liking, what people are commenting, what people are sharing on, I think that's a very key point that I wanted to highlight because of, especially that example that I just shared. She was then able to go on and be profitable by realizing that this particular topic is resonating people, and create this summit that has then for years to come, she's made money on it, right? She's profited
Mhm,
from this
mhm,
summit.
mhm.
So it's very important to pay attention to those things. So definitely look back, as Davia said, and say, what topics, what themes, what particular videos, what blog posts are people really resonating with? And think about creating something deeper. I feel like that word deeper keeps coming up in this session, but what can I offer deeper now that I understand that this topic or theme resonates with people? And in that example, her deeper was a summit. So people were able to register for a summit and learn more about sponsorships. So I would encourage your listeners and those watching to go back and do that same exercise, recognize what has resonated, recognize things that have gone viral or things that people have commented on, and think and really sit with it and say, how can I go deeper with this
Mhm.
in order to convert that content into clients, which is kind of ultimately what we're desiring to do, and what we're talking about is converting that content into paying cash clients, right? Making the money from that
Making
content. So
money,
that
yeah.
would be an example. So I really wanted to highlight that key point that you mentioned about resonating. Then the second key point that I wanted to highlight now is escaping me because you were talking about something else in the second part of it. And I said, oh, I have to share about that. Now it's escaped me. I'm
It,
getting to
it'll
that age.
come back to you.
Yeah,
It'll
what was
come
the
it'll come
you
right
talked
back
about
to you.
resonating content, and then something else you talked about right afterwards, and I was like, okay, let me remember to share about this. But yeah, it escapes me right now.
It'll come back. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah.
What I was thinking though is that our second quarter activity that we have in business is second quarter for us is always looking back and seeing where we are. And it's a good reset point for us. And so we're in the second quarter now and we're looking back at our content, probably going back about 12 months. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because one of the things that we like to do is the content that was really, pinging for folks we get more out of it when sometimes we'll post like based on like if there was a post that people really like, we'll post like a poll and we'll ask questions that relate back to that content just to see if we can get some more ideas from folks as to what exactly was it about that content that they like. And then
Yeah.
sometimes we'll even look to see who are the folks who commented on those things and to see if some of them might be people who we might have some relationships with, and we can like hop on a call with them and say, hey, we have made this post some time ago and it was about this particular thing and you liked it. And what do you think? I'm just pick folks' brains sometimes. And sometimes when we do that, that helps us to build out same content, but to just build out
In a
some
bigger way.
perspectives that we
Yeah.
may not have had before, and actually can help us to make the content fresh again and make it more real for what's going on in the marketplace right now. So I
Yeah,
really love
absolutely.
this idea of repurposing.
Yeah. And I did remember what that second thought was. It was that I recently read an article and it was about tips for wedding budget, right? Wedding planning budget or something like that. And I clicked on the link because I'm in that season, right? So you may publish something and the person is not at that season yet, right? And when I clicked on the article and it talked about 5% for this, 10% for that, it was allocating your budget for spending for your wedding. And I looked at the
Mhm.
date of when the post was originally posted and it was 2020. And here they were repurposing it in the email series that I was getting from Wedding Wire, I think it was, because it's relevant to those who are now on their email list because they're in the process of planning their wedding, right? So it wasn't important as to when the post was posted, that it was actually posted in 2020. What was more relevant for me is that I'm in this season now and I need to pay attention to what they're saying the budget breakdown is for this. So
Mhm.
I share that example to say that this blog post was from 5 years ago, but because I'm in the season of planning, it's relevant
Five
for me
years ago, you
today.
didn't care about it.
Care about it today. I wasn't caring about it 5 years because I wasn't planning a wedding, right? So I share that to say, you always make sure that you're repurposing your information because people can be in different seasons or even
Mhm.
different segments, right? Segments of your email list are in different parts of their business. So maybe you have a newbie segment or established business segment. So making sure that you're repurposing content for that segment that's relevant regardless of when you originally posted the content. So I did want to share that as an example. And it also piggybacks what you were sharing about the marketplace, what is happening, so you can think about, okay, and as we record now, what's happening politically or in society or in the economy, maybe there's something I published 4 years ago that will really hit now because of what we're going through in society or because of the way the economy is or because of the political environment. But you talked about it 4 years ago, 5 years ago, even, I'd say even sometimes it can remain relevant 10 years ago if it's hitting the right points. Now is the time for that to resurface and for you to repurpose that information because it's relevant to what is happening in society. It's relevant with what's going on right now. So I think those are two examples of paying attention to what's happening in society, in the marketplace, and repurposing information that's relevant to what's happening right now. And then also paying attention to where your clients may be in this season and what content's relevant for where they're at right now in their business, in their life, or whatever, that it's still relevant even though you posted that content years ago.
I love that, Nadine. And as you're saying that, something else comes to mind for me.
Mm,
Because here's one thing that I have found about myself. When I'm in flow, and I know
mm-hmm,
we all believe different things, but I know we all will agree that when you're in the mood to work on something and you work on it, sometimes the words or the work that comes out of you is
mm-hmm,
so class A. It's so outstanding.
mm-hmm.
And have you ever, Nadine, been in the flow at some point, did a piece of content, and then just randomly went back and looked at that piece of content, and you're like, oh my gosh, I wrote that? I need to
Yeah,
take some notes on that because that's some
yeah.
really good content. Has that ever happened to you?
Well, I would say it happens to me more speaking. Like for me,
Yes.
things will just flow through me. And afterwards, I was like, wow, that was pretty good. That was powerful because it was like a spiritual download in the moment. So I think that God works with everyone differently. Sometimes it could be spiritual download while you're writing. And it's like, wow, you write it and then you read it and say,
Hmm.
well, did I really write that? That's so powerful. Or it could simply be when you're speaking on a podcast episode or on a show
Yes.
and God allows these words to flow through your lips. And afterwards you say, wow, that was really good. That was I didn't even realize that was something that, so I think absolutely when you're in flow, God really allows spirit to flow through you, whether that's through the spoken word or the written word. And that way, you're able to look back afterwards and realize, wow, this is pretty deep. Again, word deep. Maybe this is something that I need to explore more of and go
Yes.
deeper because I was in flow when these things came through me. So yeah, paying attention to the words that come out your mouth when you're speaking and also what you're writing. It's the written word and the spoken word are two powerful ways to get spiritual downloads and for flow to come through you, for God to come through you.
I believe this so much because I am always talking and I'm always writing. So I think for me, my flow comes to like if I'm really in that moment and I'm on the show, or if I'm really in that moment and I'm writing for a
Mm-hmm.
book or whatever it is. But what I think that we can all do, especially if we've guested on podcasts or we have a live show that we do from time to time, or we have a YouTube channel or something like that, really going back and looking or listening to the content that we've done before and maybe being able to pull main points out of it in a way that we didn't before, and maybe like something that I've been able to do with some of our podcasts in the past is I've been able to pull like top 5 lists from
Mm,
some of our shows, and
mm-hmm.
so it ends up being like something that we can send out as part of our newsletter and say, hey, these are the top 5 reasons to this is a good one. These are top 5 things to pack when you're coming with us on retreat. you know,
Right.
random thing. But I did do a video on that and
Yep.
then
I
attach a
remember.
little link to the video. And folks love that stuff when you send them
Mhm.
an email and it's actually something that they can use. And then if they want to, they'll go watch the video. If they don't, it's fine because you gave them the highlights,
List.
And so another way to reuse, or you send them the little clip from your podcast, and then they probably never watched your podcast before, but now they're like, oh, or listen to your podcast before, they're like, oh, she has a podcast, let me subscribe, let me leave a comment, and before you
Yep.
know it, you have a brand new subscriber. So I feel like there's so much that we can do with what we already have.
Already have. Exactly. Yeah. I think it's limitless. Obviously, we're just kind of touching the surface and we talked more
Hmm.
in the panel discussion about other options that are out there. But the reality is it's limitless. It's as much as your imagination can create to
Yes.
repurpose your content. So I would just suggest tapping in to your imagination, tapping into how you're being led and you're being guided. As much as we've shared, there's other ways that you can repurpose your content out there, sometimes really super creative. Probably we'll hear about it and be like, wow, that's really super creative way of repurposing your content. So really tap into your imagination, tap into your spirit, tap into guidance as to what are the key things that you can repurpose and how can you repurpose that content. And I do want to share just quickly, because it's been put on my heart for authors. I feel like a lot of people author a book and they launch a book out into the atmosphere. And then it's like, what do they do beyond the launch, right? Beyond just getting the book
Yes. Oh
done
my
and out
gosh.
there, there's this big
So
gap
true.
out. What are they doing with that content? So I really want to talk specifically to authors right now about repurposing the content in their book. So when you
Hmm.
launch a book, you publish a book, it's a great feat and a great accomplishment. But you've also been given an amazing message in the form of the book that you've created, and you don't want to not steward the message fully, meaning there's still work to be done after the book has launched. So really think about, how do I repurpose the content in my book? And so people can be aware of the book and aware of the content. So really doing things like having a podcast that could be the same title as your book. And I was talking to someone just recently, and she goes through each chapter exactly of the book on the podcast. So she's either talking about the topic of that chapter or reading the chapter. She's just making sure that she's still putting the content out there from the book in the form of the spoken word, right? You've gotten the written word done in the book, but you can also repurpose it as a podcast. Second tip I want to give authors specifically, because I feel this is a huge gap in the marketplace once they launch their book.
Hmm.
If you are a published author, another way that you can continue to make sure your content is reaching people is actually putting the content from your book on a blog, right? So it's reversing it. Instead of creating a blog and then making the blog a book, it's actually making your book a blog. So you could take one chapter or each chapter of the book and create a new blog, and then at the bottom
Hmm.
you can say something like, if you'd like to read more or learn more, get the book, right?
Yeah.
So it's just giving them a snippet of what the book is about. So I really want to just lean on or talk to the authors out there right now, because I feel like more and more new authors are popping up, but everyone is kind of getting lost in the how do you keep the message going. Think about ways that you can then repurpose the content from your book so that you can continuously get that message out and also still sell your book. At on the podcast, you can say, hey, if you'd like the whole entire book, go purchase it on Amazon, right? It can be an ad on the podcast, on the blog post, like I mentioned at the very end of the call to action. It can be, do you want more of this content? Purchase the book. This is where you're going to find it. So I just felt really led to speak to the authors, specifically published authors, about making sure that they're repurposing the content from their book in other ways to make sure that you're pushing people to be aware of the book or purchase the book, or go deeper, like we talked before. Maybe you have a course that is the book content. Maybe you have a retreat that's about the book content. How can you make sure you're always pushing that message forward? Because you are actually a steward of the message. God has given you the message about living your optimal life. It's Davia's responsibility to now be a good steward of that message and share that message with others so they can understand how to live their optimal life. So really think about it as not just birthing a book, but birthing a movement that changes life for people. And because you're stewarding a movement, not just a book, what are the ways that you can make sure you're repurposing that content and keeping the message out there, keeping the message alive?
Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree with that. I mean, so many people, this is a pet peeve of mine, as you know, Nadine. So many people have these amazing messages that they share, or they have these types of work that they do that people out there truly need, but they have become the world's best kept secret because the people who need them the most, the people who, in my opinion, are losing sleep at night because they are not connecting with them, there's a mismatch. It's like they can't find them where they are. And it's easier to be found when you're in more places.
Yep.
It just is. And so you have a book. There are millions of books on Amazon. There are millions of books on Barnes and Noble. Even on Target.com, there are millions of books. On Walmart.com, millions of books. So you could get really, really easily lost in the shuffle. And so you have the book, and that's a big step. I absolutely agree with that. And then you have an opportunity to turn it into a billboard and point people in its general direction while also using it to point people to you. So it's like a beautiful back and forth. I remember when we were actively doing a program in Ladies Power Launch called Visibility Circle. And what we would do is we would put together authors, and we would collaborate on an email list. We would collaborate on putting out an anthology so they'd all become published authors. We would work together to collaborate on the podcast, collaborate on the TV show, collaborate on doing our social medias together. And all these collaborations kind of work together to give people this amplification of their voice out in the world in a way that they wouldn't have been able to do all by themselves. So I guess my thing about repurposing is always going to be, if you can repurpose and find a way to incorporate collaboration into that repurposing, it's going to be even better. Because let's say I have a blog post that I had some time ago about marketing. Wouldn't it be great if I could pick up my phone and call you and say, hey, Nadine, I wrote this blog post about marketing some time ago. Would it be okay if I asked you to share it with your audience? And I'll be happy to share something with my audience from you. And then suddenly your folks get a chance to know about me with something that I did 500 years ago. And my folks get to know something really amazing about you with something that you did some long time ago. Nobody's creating any new content, but same old content, brand new audience.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want to share on that as you were speaking. I get a lot of people reaching out to me about sharing their blog posts on my blog to reach my audience. And most of the time, they're not familiar with the content on my blog.
So you gotta be, I'm gonna say, I have had this happen so many times.
Yes.
People want to do the thing, but they don't want to do the work.
Yes. So you have to be very mindful of how you approach people to collaborate in sharing
Yes.
blog posts, for example. Number one, you should know what that person's content is all about. Number two, if you have a relationship with them, even better. If Davia is going to reach out to me about marketing, I'm listening because I have a relationship with Davia. She knows my content, I know her. So I would say just make sure you understand the person's audience, understand the person's content, understand how the collaboration will work. If you have relationship with the person, even better. If not, do a nice introduction email as to why the collaboration is going to make sense. Because too many times I get people trying to post some stuff on my blog to get, because it's also SEO, search engine optimization, so their
Yes.
link can be connect, so there's benefits in search engine optimization, not to go down that path as well, doing that type of collaboration. So I would just say I would just caution people in making sure that it's a right person to collaborate, it's the right audience, it's the right
Mhm.
information, you have a right relationship, and then that technique is awesome. That strategy works really well, definitely doing that. So yeah, that's what I would say about collaboration. And again, I have to share that Davia embodies what she teaches. She's not just saying things. She talks about collaboration. She has a whole book about collaboration, a whole podcast about collaboration. It's who she is as a person, right? So it's easy to share and teach about things that you're already embodying because you are that person. And I have to say, Davia, you are that person. You are a number one collaborator. You are there to support other women in business and, collaborate with them in order to amplify their message and get their message out there. So I just like to share that because it's important to recognize that in you. These are not just techniques and strategies that she's sharing with you. It's who she is. It's who she is.
It
Right.
is. You're not lying. It's true. I truly believe in this idea that when we link arms together, that we're stronger. I just
I
really
do
do
too.
believe that.
Yep.
Nadine, I can't believe it. I'm looking at the time and we're almost out of time. How crazy is that? Whenever we get together, this is what happens. We
Exactly.
just
We
run
could
out
talk
of
all
time.
day, every day. So yeah, it's hard to keep it condensed.
But as we're wrapping things up, what's one last thing that you'd like us to all remember? If we remember nothing else from this whole entire conversation, what shall we take away?
Okay, so what dropped into my mind as you asked that question is the word repurpose, right? It's re and purpose. Whatever content you originally created, a book, a blog, a podcast, the list can go on and on. It had a purpose. It had a purpose and the reason why you put it out there. So that purpose still exists. So it's important to repurpose the content to actually get it out there and amplify the message and reach more people. So I would say, or what I would like people to walk away with this episode is, don't forget your why, don't forget your purpose. Your purpose is at the core of everything, and because that purpose is so important, you have to repurpose your content. That is everything. And the reason why repurposing is so important is because you can't lose your purpose. So really sit with the Holy Spirit, sit with God, and figure out what is the best way for me to repurpose. And again, what content do I need to repurpose, and what is the best way for me to repurpose it? Because you have purpose, your content has purpose, so you need to repurpose your content.
I love that. We all need to remember our why and that we are here on purpose and that there is a reason why we got into doing the thing that we're doing anyway, and just
Absolutely.
really hold on to our purpose as we're out there sharing. And I feel like when we are on purpose,
Mm-hmm.
somehow it's easier for us to not be a mismatch for our clients, but for us to really connect with our content to paying clients.
Exactly.
Nadine, people are going to want to know how they can get in touch with you because they're watching along and they're like, wow, this woman, she knows her stuff. I want to be in touch with her. How can people connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to reach me is my hub online, which is my website, NadineMullings.com. That's Mullings. A lot of times people forget the G in Mullings. So Nadine Mullings, Nadine for Nadine.com is the hub. That's where you can reach me. You can learn about me. You can learn about my services. I am also on social. I would say my number one platform to connect is LinkedIn. So if you are on LinkedIn, just search for Nadine Mullings. Let me know that you heard me on the show. Happy to connect with you on that platform. And my secondary platforms that I'm on is Facebook and Instagram. So you can also look for me there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts and talents with us, Nadine. And you're always so game to have conversation with us about the things that we need. And as women in business, marketing is always a big topic for us. So we're really grateful to have you as one of the experts who can shine your light on this particular topic. At the end of every show, I like to pull a card just to give us a thought for the day, for the week. And my office manager here, she gave me a gift of this particular deck. And I love it because I feel like the woman on the cover looks just like me. So let's see. I'm gonna pull a card and just see what shall we think about this week. And it says the word, which
The word. Oh,
is
I love it.
hilarious to me because
Yeah.
we're talking about content. Hello. It's got to be about the word all the time. So let me
Yeah, and I
just
shared
try to
about the
find it.
spoken word and the written word. So the fact that the word came up when we were speaking about the spoken and written word is definitely not a coincidence.
This is so funny. I always, for those of you who are watching for the first time, always pull a card or somebody on the show will pull a card and we try to post the card in the Ladies Power Lunch Facebook community and folks can go read the explanations. And if you have some thoughts, if it evokes something for you, you can drop your comments and we can actually have some discussion back and forth. So here's what it says. Stories and storytelling have been with us since the beginning. Our minds are designed to share our experiences with each other. We crave the sharing of stories to remind us that we're connected through our words. The word leans into her wings. She steadies a stack of parchment on her lap, her knees curled up to meet the paper. The girl holds a plume in her right hand, poised to strike the page at any moment. Her eyes remain closed, engrossed in the visions of the story her mind describes. When she's ready, a new story will get inked on the page. Write your story down. Have a playful attitude towards life. So
Wow.
I love this card. This just feels like it's everything that we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Get our messages out there.
Yep.
Be sharing our word.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And I love it because too, I did a summit a couple years ago called The Power of Your Words,
Ooh.
right? The Power of Your Words. And my summit this year, I haven't announced it yet, but it's not going to be until the fall, is The Power of Your Story. The power of your story. So to imagine that this card is about the word and it talks about your story is like the two, like it's almost like confirmation, let's put it that way, that I'm on the right track with the power of your word, the power of your voice, the power of your story. So yeah, that card was definitely confirmation for me.
And I feel like it's a good card for us to look at when we're talking about repurposing content because I think a lot of us have our story, the thing that brought us to doing the work that we're doing. And sometimes we can feel a little bit like, but they've all heard it before. And should we tell that story again? You know, and I feel like our card is telling us, hey, get playful with it, get creative with it, do what you need to do with it, but get it out there and keep getting it out there. That's what I'm taking away from this particular
I
card.
agree.
And
I
I invite you folks watching along, you folks listening along. Yes, you. If you have something that you think that this card is evoking for you, or if you have tips for us, like you're thinking to yourself, Davia and Nadine, you didn't remember to tell us this thing about repurposing. Guess what? It's fine. Just come in our Ladies Power Lunch community and share your thoughts. Come on over to growsmarternotharder.com/login and come share your gifts and talents with us. We're waiting. Thank you so much, Nadine, for joining us today. Thank you, everybody, for listening along with us, watching along with us, however you're finding us. Remember, like, subscribe, leave us a comment. We love you so much, and we'll see you on the next show. Bye, everyone.
Hi, I'm Misha Hadaway, CEO and owner of Gentle Mama Counseling, and you're tuned into Ladies Power Lunch.
Hi, I'm Nadine Keller, CEO of Precision Sales Coaching and Training, and you are tuned into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Debbie Sodergren, the CEO of Up Vibrations, and you are plugged into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Christy Sullivan, human design expert, author, and speaker, and you are tuned in to the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Keisha Zulo, president of Events of Joy, and you're tuned into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Mary Colangelo. I'm an international fashion therapist, and you are tuned in to the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Lakeisha Clemens, the CEO of Freedom Life Therapy and Wellness. You are tuned in to the Ladies Power Lunch Show.
Hi, I'm Kiana Coachman Strickland, also known as DJ Q Boogie. I'm the founder of Female DJ Association, and you are tuned into the Ladies Power Lunch Show.